Okay, here's a question to start us off. What if the very technologies we designed to, empower humanity also pose these really unprecedented risks? Welcome to the deep dive. We take the sources you're interested in and really pull out the key insights. Today, we're diving deep into a truly thought-provoking book, The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman and Michael Baskar. Our goal for this deep dive is to unpack the book's central idea, which is that this emerging cluster of technologies, mainly AI and synthetic biology, is going to reshape pretty much everything. It presents these huge opportunities, but also some really existential challenges that the book argues we have to learn to contain.
Yeah, and what's fascinating right from the start is how the book creates this real sense of urgency. It doesn't just talk about innovation, it frames these technologies as a wave.
Hmm.
Powerful, seems unstoppable, and the impacts just sort of emerge. Often unforeseen, maybe uncontrollable. It's less about what they can do and more about what they will inevitably do, like it or not. It's this massive force heading our way.
Okay, so let's get into that, this coming wave. What exactly are these technologies according to the book, and why this feeling of inevitability?
Well, the real heart of the wave is artificial intelligence and synthetic biology. And the book traces their, well, hyper-exponential growth. Is quite something. For AI, it looks at DeepMind's journey. You see the evolution from an early AI like DQN learning strategies in games,
Hmm.
all the way to AlphaGo mastering Go in ways humans just hadn't thought of. And then AlphaZero, which didn't even need human games to learn, it just played itself millions of times and became superhuman, discovering totally new knowledge.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really interesting for me. The book talks about progress from computer vision, AlexNet back in 2012, which basically taught computers to see in a new way, enabling stuff like self-driving cars, facial recognition, all the way to these huge language models like LaMDA, GPT-2, GPT-3. And the point it makes is this isn't just steady growth, it's this incredible explosion in computing power, like a 9 order of magnitude increase in the compute used for the biggest AI training runs in less than 10 years. I mean, that's a billion times more. It just blows Moore's law completely out of the water, doesn't it?
It really does. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, there's this thing called the scaling hypothesis, which basically suggests, look, just throw more data, more parameters, more compute at it, and these things just keep getting better, almost without limit,
Huh.
potentially up to human level intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and maybe way beyond. What's also key is efficiency. They're getting better at doing more with less,
Right.
you know, which makes them cheaper, more accessible, often open source, like Meta's Llama system. It was meant to be restricted, but bang, it's out on BitTorrent running on a $50 computer.
Mm-hmm.
So the question becomes, right, what happens when tools this powerful are just out there
Yeah.
for anyone?
Okay, so AI is one massive current, but the book says there's another equally powerful force merging with its synthetic biology. What's happening there?
Right. So Synbio, the book explains, lets us not just read DNA, like sequencing genomes, but actually edit it and even write it. From scratch, you had CRISPR gene editing, that big breakthrough around 2012. It made editing genes almost as easy as like editing text. Super precise. And that's really democratized things. It's not just for elite labs anymore. Plus, you can get DNA synthesizers now for maybe $25,000.
Hmm.
So anyone with the know-how or even just, intense enthusiasm could potentially cook up DNA in their garage.
Wow, it feels like the lines between digital code and biological code are just dissolving. So, what does this mean in the real world? What can you do with this biological creativity?
Well, it's unleashing this completely new landscape. It blurs nature and engineering. We're talking about viruses engineered to make batteries, proteins designed to purify water, actual human organs grown in vats for transplants, plants that eat toxic waste, algae designed to suck carbon out of the air, even, these wild de-extinction projects like bringing back woolly mammoths. And in medicine, it's huge. Personalized treatments, potential cures for things like sickle cell, leukemia, even research into slowing aging. The book highlights AlphaFold again from DeepMind. It cracked the protein folding problem, predicting a protein's 3D shape, a massive challenge for decades and hours. They made, 200 million protein structures public, just boom, available. And it even touches on brain-computer interfaces, implants letting paralyzed people type with their thoughts, companies like Neuralink, Synchron pushing human trials.
It really does sound like sci-fi becoming real, and the book stresses these aren't separate things, right? AI and symbio, they feed off each other.
Exactly. That's the key point. It calls them general purpose waves. They amplify each other. They spread everywhere. Think about the steam engine
Yeah.
or electricity. They didn't just change one thing. They created this whole new ecosystem of technologies.
Mm.
So you see robotics, for example, drones, little robots on farms, reducing the need for human workers. But then you also get the Dallas police using a bomb robot lethally. A chilling example of how accessible this tech is becoming. And quantum computing is on the horizon too.
Yeah.
Still early days, but promises to shake up cryptography, optimization.
Yeah.
Another accelerate. It's like this hyper evolution just speeding up across the board.
So this brings us to what the book calls the containment problem. It basically argues that stopping this or even really controlling it just isn't possible. Why? Why is this wave so hard to get a handle on?
Right. The book lays out 5 key reasons, these powerful drivers that make containment exceptionally difficult, maybe impossible in the old sense. First one, geopolitical competition. Simple as that. Nations feel they must keep up. It's almost existential for them. China's got this national strategy right. Lead AI by 2030, huge investments in quantum robotics. The U.S. sees its lead slipping. So it creates this arms race dynamic. Not developing the tech feels like choosing to lose. So everyone feels forced to race ahead.
Right, a race nobody feels they can afford to sit out. Okay, what's driver number 2?
Number 2 is the global research ecosystem. Science just thrives on openness, on sharing. You've got academics posting papers on ArcStiff before they're even peer-reviewed. You have big tech companies like Alphabet, Meta, open sourcing huge amounts of code, powerful models. Knowledge just spreads globally, instantly. Which makes it incredibly hard to, steer research or shut down certain paths. Look at CRISPR. It came from studying weird bacteria in salt marshes and yogurt. You can't predict or control where the next big thing comes from.
And the third driver is something, well, pretty fundamental, money, right? The economics of it all.
Oh, absolutely. The immense financial rewards. That's number 3. The book compares it to past tech booms, like the railway mania in the 1840s, this huge speculative rush that fundamentally reshaped things. Today, just AI investment is, $100 billion a year? Trillions going into R&D from corporations. This profit motive. It's maybe the most powerful, most persistent driver, turning breakthroughs into products for billions. It's a relentless engine.
But it's not just about profit or competition. The book also suggests we kind of need these technologies, doesn't it, to solve big problems.
That's the 4th driver, exactly. Global challenges, feeding billions more people. I mean, tech already achieved miracles there, right? A 16-fold increase in food yields since 1945, feeding 3 times the population, tackling climate change, fighting pandemics. The argument is we need tools like carbon capture, new materials, advanced healthcare. So there's this strong moral pull towards developing these technologies, not away from them. How can we not pursue cures for diseases?
Okay, and the 5th and final driver. It seems to tap into something deep in the human spirit, or at least the engineering spirit.
Yeah, it's ego and curiosity, that innate drive. The book quotes Oppenheimer talking about things being technically sweet.
Oh.
You see something cool, something possible, you just do it. You figure out the consequences later.
Yeah.
After you've succeeded technically. And John von Neumann basically said it's unethical for scientists not to build what's feasible, whatever the consequences. So this drive to push boundaries, just to see if it can be done, it's a really powerful force, kind of independent of all the other incentives.
Okay, so we have these incredibly powerful, mutually reinforcing technologies driven forward by competition, money, necessity, and just plain curiosity. And they're essentially uncontainable. So what happens when this unstoppable wave hits our existing societies, our governments? The book talks about fragility amplifiers.
Exactly. The wave isn't arriving in a vacuum. It's hitting a world that's already, as the book puts it, buckling under existing strain. And these technologies, they amplify those existing weaknesses, those fragilities in our systems, especially the nation state.
Right. So let's unpack that amplification. What are the biggest areas where you see this happening, according to the book?
Well, one huge area is security and violence. Cyber attacks are a prime example. Things like WannaCry, not Petya. They use stolen state-level tools, spread like wildfire globally. Crippled hospitals, businesses. They showed how easily state functions can be degraded, how borders mean less and less. The book warns about a national emergency 2.0 next-gen cyber weapons, maybe AI-powered, constantly adapting. It's a scary prospect.
And you mentioned the Dallas robot earlier and that assassination in Iran. That points to something the book calls the primacy of offense, right? Technology making attack easier.
Precisely. That's a really chilling phrase. Primacy of offense. No. Sophisticated armed robots. Autonomous drones. They make lethal force cheaper, more accessible, to more actors, not just states. The cost of military drones dropped like 1,000-fold in a decade. So you can imagine miniaturized bots, drone swarms, maybe available to, as the book puts it, lone psychopaths, or that AI-assisted sniper hitting a target via satellite link. It really shifts the balance of power towards attackers, destabilizing things.
And that instability feeds right into the information sphere, I imagine. The whole problem of trust and truth.
Absolutely. That's another huge fragility amplifier. The rise of misinformation and disinformation, supercharged by deepfakes. We're talking synthetic text, images, video, audio, convincing fakes that anyone can create now, potentially. The book warns about an infocalypse, a future where we just can't tell what's real anymore, eroding trust in media, in government, in democracy itself. Imagine interactive deepfakes tailored to your specific fears or grievances, or swaying elections undetectably. It's a fundamental crisis for shared reality.
Beyond deliberate attacks, what about just things going wrong? Accidents, unintended consequences.
Yeah, the book really stresses these revenge
Yeah.
effects, even when you're trying to do good. Lab accidents are a key example. The 77 Russian flu, maybe escape from a lab, the whole debate around COVID-19's origins. And even with the highest security, these BSL-4 labs designed for the deadliest pathogens, accidents happen. Human error. There was a U.S. risk assessment in 2014. It estimated a 91% chance of a major lab leak from just 10 labs over a decade, and a 27% chance of a pandemic resulting from one. It just shows how embedding powerful tools everywhere, even with safeguards, creates inherent risks, big ones.
And the perennial question,
Not jobs.
jobs. We always hear technology creates new jobs, but the book seems skeptical this time around with AI. Is it different?
The argument is, yes, it might be different this time. Past ways automated physical labor. But AI seems poised to automate intellectual manual labor first, tasks done by knowledge workers. There was early analysis of ChatGPT showing like a 40% productivity boost for mid-level professionals on certain writing tasks. McKinsey estimated half of all jobs could see significant task automation within 7 years. The really scary question the book raises is, what if AI gets good enough to do the new jobs too, the ones created by automation? That could be a real bottleneck for human employment.
And alongside these impacts, the book paints this picture of, well, massive corporate power growing even larger.
Yeah, it suggests we're seeing these tech giants, Google, Samsung, companies like that, grow almost beyond the scale of many nation states. They're providing services that used to be government functions, right? Mapping, communication, even dispute resolution, like eBay and PayPal handling more disputes than the entire U.S. court system. And crucially, these companies control the biggest AI supercomputers, the most advanced quantum computers. It accelerates this trend of corporate concentration, where private power grows as government capacity perhaps shrinks or gets overwhelmed.
Which ties into another major concern the book raises, surveillance and the potential for authoritarianism.
Definitely. It shows how AI is basically enabling surveillance on a whole new level. Next-level surveillance and control. China's Sharp Eyes program is the prime example, aiming for 100% facial recognition coverage in public spaces. Huge databases, iris scans. And this tech gets exported globally. The book calls it a textbook failure of containment. The warning is stark. If we face major crises, societies might actually welcome extreme surveillance as a solution, as a form of relief, leading us down a slippery slope towards, well, kind of techno-dystopia.
Okay, it's a lot, and frankly, pretty sobering. So, given all this, what does the book actually suggest we do? Is containment even possible if it failed with printing presses and guns?
Well, the book is realistic. It admits history isn't encouraging for just saying no to tech. The Ottomans banning the printing press, Japan's isolation, didn't last. Even the nuclear exception, where we mostly contain proliferation, it wasn't easy and involved terrifying near misses, like that B-52 dropping H-bombs over North Carolina in '61, where just one safety switch prevented catastrophe. So the core argument isn't about stopping it. It's that we're on this narrow and treacherous path, a real dilemma. Pushing ahead too fast risks disaster. Trying to stop it risks falling behind, maybe even leading to different kinds of dystopia or being unable to solve global problems.
So, it's not about hitting the brakes entirely, but about steering, navigating carefully, finding that narrow path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It explicitly argues we need these new technologies. They're a critical part of tackling climate change, feeding everyone, improving healthcare, especially with demographic shifts coming. So instead of stopping, it proposes this comprehensive strategy, a kind of new grand bargain for containment. It outlines 9 distinct pillars, plus a 10th idea that ties them all together. It's about building better defenses, learning to manage the wave.
Okay, a 9-pillar strategy. Let's break that down. What are some of the key pillars that stand out? How do we actually begin to manage this?
Well, the first one, maybe the most fundamental, is technical safety. This means building safety right into the technology itself. Things like air gaps in labs, secure sandboxes for code, reliable off switches. But the big idea here is a call for an Apollo program on AI safety and biosafety. Mandating, say, a percentage of R&D budgets must go to safety, with transparency, developing things like explainable AI so we know why it's making decisions, critic AIs that watch other AIs, building systems that are provably beneficial, demonstrably aligned with our goals, and corrigible, meaning we can always correct or shut them down, even super intelligent ones, and maybe even technical limits, like how photocopiers block money copying, limits on AI capabilities, maybe cryptographic locks on models, embedding safety deep down.
That sounds like a huge shift in how we approach building tech. What about watching over things once they're built? Oversight.
Right, that's pillar two. Oversight and audit. We need ways to track what's happening. Things like the Partnership on AI's Incidents Database, a place to share info about safety problems confidentially, or Secure DNA, this initiative trying to screen all DNA synthesis orders globally to check for dangerous sequences like viruses. It's about creating transparency and accountability mechanisms outside the individual labs or companies.
Okay. And you mentioned choke points earlier. That's another pillar. How does that work?
Yes, pillar three. It's a really interesting strategic idea. The book identifies these few spots where the supply chain for cutting-edge tech is really concentrated. Like NVIDIA designs most top AI chips. TSMC in Taiwan makes nearly all of them. And ASML in the Netherlands makes the unique machines TSMC needs. These companies form a kind of chokehold. So the U.S. export controls on chips to China. That's basically using these choke points. The idea isn't to stop China forever, but to buy time. Time to build defenses, strengthen alliances, develop better containment overall. It's a strategic lever.
Interesting. What about the people actually building this stuff? The engineers, the scientists, what's their role?
That's pillar four. Maker's responsibility. The book is pretty blunt. Building tech isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. You're responsible. And it has this great line, critics should build it too, meaning people who understand the risks need to be in the development process, not just shouting from outside. It means integrating ethics from the very start, hiring diverse teams, listening to non-technical voices, really embedding responsibility, not just talking about it.
Okay, makes sense. But what about the companies? They're driven by profit. How do you get them on board?
That's pillar five, businesses. Profit plus purpose. It argues we need new commercial models, ways to make profit compatible with broader social goals. It mentions DeepMind's attempt, when Google bought them, to set up this structure, a global interest company, aiming to reinvest profits, open source things. Now, that proved really hard to actually implement within Google's existing structure, which shows the challenge. But the book says we have to find ways to align business incentives better.
And governments, you said they're fragile, but they must have a role, right?
Absolutely. Pillar six is government. Despite the challenges, the book says we need to strengthen government's ability to deal with this. It suggests things like dedicated cabinet positions, a secretary or a minister for emerging technology, moving towards licensing for developing the most powerful AI or symbio, like we do for nuclear power or launching rockets, serious oversight, maybe taxes on automation to fund retraining, huge investments in reskilling people for the changes coming.
And this is all global stuff, so international cooperation must be key.
Totally. Pillar seven. Alliances and international cooperation. It's essential. The book points to past successes, nuclear non-proliferation, fixing the ozone layer with the Montreal Protocol, eradicating smallpox. It shows cooperation is possible, even if difficult. It suggests trying to find areas for U.S.-China collaboration, maybe on biosafety or securing communications, even while competing elsewhere, and proposing new international bodies, like an AI Audit Authority, AAA, to create global transparency on who's building what capabilities.
What kind of culture do we need for all this to work? It sounds like we need to think differently about mistakes.
Exactly. Pillar 8 is culture, respectfully embracing failure. We need a culture shift, away from secrecy and cover-ups towards openness when things go wrong. If there's a lab leak, don't hide it, advertise it, so everyone can learn from it. It references the Salomar conference back in the 70s, where scientists paused and set ethical guidelines for genetic engineering. We need a modern version of that spirit, maybe a kind of Hippocratic oath for technologists. First, do no harm, live daily, even when it's complicated.
Okay, almost there. Pillar 9. What about everyone else? The public. Us.
Pillar 9 is movements. The book points out that often concerns about technology are kind of elite pursuits, but real change happens when people demand it. So it's about building public awareness, public pressure, a critical mass demanding that these technologies are developed safely and aligned with human values. Because the techies alone can't solve it, and governments alone can't solve it. It needs broad societal engagement.
Right. So 9 pillars: technical safety, oversight, choke points, maker responsibility, business models, government, alliances, culture, and movements. What holds it all together?
The 10th and final point is coherence. Containment isn't just one of these things. It's the emergent phenomenon of their collective interplay. It's how all these different pieces reinforce each other, like a virtuous circle. Treaties support national laws, which encourage safer tech design, which is verified by audits demanded by the public. It's not a single solution, but this ongoing dynamic process, a narrow and never-ending path, something we have to constantly work at.
So the coming wave leaves us with this really profound challenge, this dilemma. These technologies could be our salvation, solving huge problems, but they also carry these immense, maybe catastrophic risks. And the book argues we can't just wish them away, we can't block them entirely, but we also absolutely cannot ignore the dangers.
Yeah, it really puts the question to us, doesn't it? History suggests tech spreads. The incentives, money, power, curiosity, are incredibly strong. So how do we make sure this time, with these incredibly powerful technologies, humanity adapts successfully? Instead of getting overwhelmed or stumbling into disaster, what does adaptation even look like in this context?
It's like the book says, right? The Luddites couldn't stop the machines, but society eventually adapted to the Industrial Revolution, albeit painfully. The challenge now is similar, but maybe faster, maybe higher stakes. Can we harness the good parts of this wave without being drowned by the bad? It's this incredibly delicate balancing act, the book argues, avoiding too much control, that despotic leviathan, but also avoiding too little, avoiding chaos, requires constant vigilance, constant effort, this new grand bargain. So, thinking about everything we've just discussed from the coming wave, what's the one thing that really stands out to you? What's the question it leaves you wrestling with about our future? We would genuinely love to hear your thoughts on this too. What resonates with you? What worries you? Let us know. Until next time, keep diving deep into the world around you.